Live. Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Josiah, also known as Chilling Silence. I have the pleasure today of being joined by Laura. Laura is going to be asking a couple questions and potentially guiding some of the discussions today. What I'm going to do really quickly is go and grab the link, pop it up on Twitter. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment. I think it's connecting. It looks like it's connecting. Yay, it's connecting. Should do, let's hit the magic tweet button there, is start off by, I suppose, going into why you thought that this would be a good idea, Laura, because I agree, great idea, hence here we are.
I'm retweeting, I'm listening, I'm retweeting.
Yeah, that's cool. And
so obnoxious.
Yeah, look, why don't we just start with that? Like, what were some of the things that you had seen that made you suggest this as an idea, this live stream?
Okay. Well, yeah, so when the topic of a logo change came up, there was just such this tidal wave, I would say, of emotion that,
Yep.
covered the community. It was really heated. It's kind of nasty at times. And it wasn't really resolving. It didn't feel like things were moving, it was just like constant, it was still kind of just like in the air, hanging there. And it really, it brought up like kind of a really interesting problem for us as a community, as a project, is how do we deal with problems? I mean, how do we deal with issues like this? How do we deal with them so that it doesn't turn out like this way?
Yep.
What can we learn from this? Like, because this definitely wasn't, it didn't flow in a productive way in a lot of ways, and I think we can definitely do better. And so I thought maybe it would be helpful to have like a one-on-one discussion. I think that Twitter is probably the lowest form of communication on the planet besides TikTok. So, to be able to have a live stream for you to hear from people and you have heard from them, but be able to like respond back verbally, in real time, and just have like kind of a broader conversation, and
rather than being limited to like 280 characters.
Right. And and I think when you're typing something out or something, it just doesn't come across the same way.
Yep.
And I was trying to really understand this problem and understand, just as a fellow community member, like how do we get past this, move forward, learn from it, be better from it. Brought up some really interesting issues that I really never thought about before. And so I just thought, something real time would help, with the discussion, and not just try to be reacting to people on Twitter all day. It's such a drain. And it really
I have no idea what you're talking about.
it just turns into like this recursive cycle that doesn't it just facilitates more anger and negativity, and not really productive. So
and I think you're absolutely right. There's definitely some things that kind of we can take away from this and we can learn from. And this won't be the last time, I'd imagine, that these kinds of discussions happen, even if it's not specifically around this. But I think you were saying just before as well, how as a community do we address these kinds of things, and how should this kind of thing be brought up, even if we're talking about, for example, like the main DigiByte website and revamping that and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So I mean, I think that there's definitely some learning curves that are pretty steep right now. The dynamic of the community is also kind of changing and evolving as well. So we have to, like what it was 3 years ago versus what it is now. It's very different. It's grown a lot. It's more spread out in some ways, and so.
Which is great. That's what we want to see.
Exactly, but then we also have to, we have to craft decision making to facilitate that. To facilitate that growth, to facilitate the change, so, just, I think this is just going to be a healthy discussion on, how we can do that better.
Yeah, how can we better overall? And I think that I mean, that leads on to a very good question that I think it was actually Michelle who said. She basically said, why have you done it like this? Why didn't you prep people beforehand a little bit? And so I think to answer that, everything that's been done has been done with the vision of being within the guidelines that some of the other developers have put together and are specifically wanting everything to adhere to. So the idea being, if it doesn't adhere to these guidelines, then they've very clearly stipulated they're not interested in even reviewing it. So this is what kind of underpins everything here. The idea that we want this to be reviewed by the developers for consideration, and the community as well, to then obviously have their say. So the theory behind this, and some of the method to the madness, and why it all kind of went down like that, is I was actually talking all the way back, originally, I think it was like December, January, with Demir. Now, a lot of people will know Demir because he is some of the brains behind the mobile look and feel. He's also had a direct hand with helping out with the DigiID website, made a bunch of the logos and things for Digi Assets and all that kind of thing. And I said to him, I was like, hey, look, I know a while back you'd made a proof of concept, like a whole lot of mock-up images for the DigiByte wallet. We're doing a whole lot of stuff for DigiByte version 8, and we want people to be able to talk about it, and we want to give them something they can visually see that will represent all of these under-the-hood changes. Because let's be honest, if I turn around to you and I say, hey, Laura, this is something new that we've done, and we now have Schnorr signatures, I know that obviously you'll be super interested. Most people probably won't be, though, especially if there's nothing that they can visually see to represent those changes. So we're doing all of these changes under the hood and getting everything all ready. We want something to be able to show people to... What's the best way of kind of explaining this? Like represent all of those under the hood changes, if you know what I mean? Am I making sense there?
No, I get it. Like this is a, not as simple. There's a lot of changes involved in the next version.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Oh yeah. So this was kind of the theory. So I had a chat with him. Because I know that he'd previously gone and done these mock-up images. Back then, originally, none of the other developers were interested in implementing these. The theory was, we've already got 3 different themes for DigiByte. They're just fine. No sense in wasting time on this. But I wanted to find it and dig it up anyway because I liked it. Now, he basically said, he's like, yeah, sure, but why bother stopping with just that? Why not go one step further? Why not give some people like something to really be excited about and really talk about and demonstrate specifically all of these under the hood changes that are going into version 8. Like if we are going to be doing multiple algorithms and we're proposing Schnorr signatures and we've got performance improvements we're hoping for, all of this really cool stuff is potentially going to add up to be more than the last 5 years worth of development all combined into one nice little package. So it's important, right? And this is kind of why we wanted to visually articulate that. He actually suggested, he said, look, it's not the sort of thing that he's able to put a whole lot of time into, but he put me in touch with Spiral. Now, Spiral is somebody who'd already proposed this all the way back in 2019 with a slightly different logo and said, look, they actually, back, I remember in 2019, they joined the Telegram channel and said, here it is. Here's this proposal, which was quite different from the one that they've done now. But they said, here it is, I'd love to know what you think. And the community at the time was very much like, well, we've just got this other new one. Not interested. But Demir put me in touch with Spiral again, and Spiral got to work and basically said, well, look, I'd love to come up with something for you, some proper brand guidelines, not just like a logo in 2 or 3 different shapes, but full-on guidelines, details about how people can use it, the way that they should assemble it, all of that kind of good stuff, which we've never actually had before when it comes to DigiByte. It's previously just been, here's a picture, have at it. So this kind of additional level of professionalism was what we were really going for, and to have something that we could really, really show off and be proud of, and to be able to take to, like, vendors of other services, like CoinMarketCap, for example, to be able to take to exchanges and all of that kind of payment processors, and really get that kind of support on board for, hey, this is new, this is exciting, get excited, tell your people about it, that kind of thing. Did that work? Absolutely not. But that was the idea behind it, and this was the goal. So the reason that we basically, hey Chris, just wanted to say shout outs to you for joining it at 1:30 in the morning there in the chat.
Sorry, Chris.
One of the reasons that we did it this way was because we wanted to give people a bit of like a sneak peek, a bit of advanced, like a heads up that this was what was going to be proposed. One of the reasons that to also allow people, as
sorry,
it's fine.
I'm trying to pull it up so I can see the questions.
To also allow
phone.
people, because this was something that I think you also you've talked about, and you basically you said why don't we get other people to do it as well? To which I would say, yeah, absolutely. Other people should be able to do this in keeping with the process that the developers want to be provided with. They want to basically have the full thing ready to go, ready for review, and get it handed to them and go, what do you think? At which time both of them and the community can come in and go, yeah, look, this new interface looks absolutely incredible. It's nothing like what we thought. This is amazing. Or they can go, oh, I don't really like that a lot, actually. Maybe we don't. Or even better, why not have it as a secondary option? Not a lot of people know that there's currently 3 different themes in the DigiByte Core wallet already. Just some food for thought there. So that was some of the methods to the madness, some of the logic and the reasoning behind it. Love to hear your thoughts, Laura, specifically on how badly I managed to fuck that up.
Well, let me say
That's
it like
as close
this.
to a facepalm as I've ever seen you do right there.
I'll say it like this. When you posted the Medium article on Twitter,
Yep.
what did you think the reaction of the community would be? Were you like...
I was optimistic for enthusiasm.
Okay. Because I'm just... And the reason I say that is, I think that, and I get your... I mean, I get what you're saying. I get like why you guys, had the thought process that you had, right? But I'm really, and I'm not even, for me, it's not even about if you like the logo or if you don't like the logo. It's more about how was this process done? And there is a breakdown in that.
And what can we be doing better for?
And what can we be doing better?
Especially with the communication, because you raised this, we are now so much broader than we have ever been.
Right. And we're cross platforms, and some people are only on Reddit, some people are only on Twitter, some people are only on Telegram, and these are all 3 kind of subgroups within the overall community that supports this project.
Yeah.
And so I will say when I first read the message, it was like, new logo, you say? Awesome, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, wait, what's going on? And so I think, when something, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of spiraling on myself.
That's cool.
Let me back up for a second too, because I want to hit a point that you brought up too with like the whole like the process improvement plan, for coding, and you're like, okay, well, we're trying to follow the contribution guidelines that were set forth, and in the contribution guidelines, as I'm aware, really are about code. The developers, they're about the code. It's just, and that's GitHub. That's a realm that, like, I look at it. I don't know what they're saying half the time. I like to watch, Yeah,
it's fun to just watch all of the.
Yeah, I'm very voyeuristic, but when it comes to a logo decision, a non-developer decision, that's different. That's a different crowd of people that have a strong emotion of that they have a very strong opinion of yes or no, yay or nay. We've got a lot of veteran business owners that had, I saw a post and they're like, hey, I've had a business for 30 years. Rebranding is really hard.
Mm.
And, they have a different perspective. Are they going to go on GitHub and, talk about the code? No, because that's for the developers. So I think part of the problem here that I'm seeing from my perspective is to treat the logo the same way we would treat a code decision, a code change, a code, like it's not a pull request really necessarily for a code change that needs review and thorough and, boom, boom, boom. And it's and frankly, probably less than 0.5% of our population are even on GitHub. So to say
even that's probably pretty generous.
Exactly. And so to say that's where we want to like make this decision. It really cuts out a huge swath, huge.
Yeah, and that raises, because we were talking about maybe we do something on Twitter, or maybe we do a straw poll. One of the things, though, actually, and I'm terribly sorry for Linda if you end up watching this later on, if we get it re-uploaded, is because Linda had actually said, well, look, I can't get on YouTube in my country. And that's one of the things as well, is a lot of places, a lot of people don't specifically have a Twitter account. They can't, there are certain jurisdictions where that's not permitted, or any of those kinds of things as well. Like, even if we take, for example, I've been liaising with a rather large mining pool, potentially one of the biggest ones, or potentially even the biggest, I guess, that DigiByte would have, throughout the last couple of weeks. They're not on a lot of Western social media. They're based out of China. And so how do we make sure that they are engaged if we aren't, what's the Chinese social media, Weibo? How do we
WeChat.
Yeah, look, even WeChat as well. Like, how do we engage with them on there? And that's not something that I myself have an answer for, but I know that this was something that the Ethereum community were also struggling with when it came for discussions around that kind of thing.
Yeah, and until we have like a true, working governance feature, voting feature that we can do that, for everybody, it's just going to be, it's a problem that we need to find a solution for, even if it's a temporary solution, so that we don't have this huge breakdown in collaboration, in consensus. I mean, consensus is, we've got to find a way to reach that, somehow, or at least feel like we have done a good college try, the best we can with the limitations that we have. And as far as that goes, to go back to the decision of the, the idea of doing this on GitHub, and the vote wouldn't be had until basically version 8 was put up. So this discussion would just be in the community, everybody back and forth for how long, months and months, right? That's very destructive, and it's not productive. It's just making people put their lines in the sand even harder and not collaborating. They're like, oh, you're the new logo guy, I'm the old logo guy, forget you. Like, this is exactly the opposite of what we need to be doing. Frankly, we've got really big problems that we need to solve, and we need to do it together as a community. And when something like divisive like this is, and it's just swirling around, and people are just, again, I don't see people being like, oh, let's, I know it's not about like, just kumbaya and everything, but it is to a certain point. It is to a certain point. And
well, yeah,
and
that's just it. This was, I mean, like I mentioned, I never expected that this would be so divisive, and I never thought that we would have people putting a stake in the ground and saying that this is going to single-handedly kill DigiByte. Like...
Well, I think that the problem here is, most people didn't even know this was coming as a discussion. There wasn't like, hey guys, a group of us are thinking we should probably have a new logo change to go with the next version. Do you think we should? And get feedback from the community. I mean, I think Demir is very talented. I'm very, very grateful for everything he's given. I think Spiral, obviously a very talented designer, and I think that I really have to say, I saw some of the worst comments of just be mean. Like you can say, I don't like it, or,
Yeah.
I like the old one for this reason and that reason. But I saw some also really mean, kind of, and this is someone who put in time, you know.
Mm.
So, I mean, everybody's giving something or trying to give what they feel their talent can be. So, I mean, I think also one thing we have to keep in mind, just in general, I mean, there's already so much hostility in the world. We can do better as a community than what I saw. The verbal abuse, uh, and I've seen this for years now. I've been in this community for years, and it is one of the most detrimental things to what we're trying to do, and that quality of communication. If we're to move forward, that's got to be better. I mean, it's just got to be better. And I know
100%.
it's very easy to be tired, be scared, the price is going down, you had a bad day, whatever your reason, and you get on Twitter and you're a cowboy, keyboard cowboy, but it's energy you're putting out there, and it drags everything down. And you'll notice I don't respond to a lot of things, even if it's in a thread that I'm in. I don't like a lot of comments. I mean, if it's not, I don't like blocking community members, but I got to the point where I'm like, it was so, divisive and rude. I thought about, blocking people, and it's not
Oh
what
yeah,
I want
yeah, I
to
did
do.
that. There was only like a small handful, like three people. Where it was just.
But again, I think we can do better. Yeah, I think we can do better as a whole.
Yeah.
And so I think there was that problem there. The community was not even like, as a whole, was not consulted of, hey, this is what a group of us are thinking about doing. What do you guys think? Because I think you would have gotten, even before you put up the logo, just like, do you think a logo change is necessary for this? And you could have gotten a temperature, and if the temperature was like, yeah, let's see what you got, or yeah, are we going to have submissions? I want to maybe put in a submission. I want to put in submission, and then we can vote. If we, it's like there's you know what I'm saying? So it was a little bit different in that way. And, I've thought about it a lot over the last week. It's like, how could we handle this better? And I think, people were putting up Twitter polls all over the place, and it was, definitely like they want to keep the logo the same. But like you said, Twitter polls can be, bought. A lot of these polls can be manipulated. And so I was talking with a friend of mine who I used to teach with, and she used SurveyMonkey a lot, and I've used it too. Like trying to get feedback from your students, and you want to do it in an anonymous way.
Is that Valerie who's in the chat there?
Yeah. And so we were talking. We were trying to figure out, like, how could you? I mean, we're both math, but statistics is her jam. So how could we get a consensus, get a vote, get a temperature, across all the platforms? Because a Twitter poll, even if it couldn't be bought, it's just Twitter. Same problem that you'd have with, you'd get a larger part of the community for sure, but just like GitHub, and like you were saying, some of these things are not accessible to everybody all over the world.
Yep.
And so the thing about SurveyMonkey that Val and I were talking about it, and I'm not saying this is absolutely, I'm trying to find solutions forward for things like this, so that it's not about this personal, contentious, this is my side, this is your side, but just a poll, you don't have to be, just what do you think? And
yeah, so, and I think once it's already devolved into that, like, taking sides, and like you were talking about, the aggression that we saw, like, it's done for, in terms of, like, it's not helpful, it's not productive for anybody.
So, and that's why I think, like, if I were you, right, and I were to do this again, okay, if I had to, like, think back and go, what could we have done differently? Maybe, have, Spiral and Demir and people who were for the idea of a logo change, and then have an open discussion and let people, like, hear that discussion of why, and then, maybe do a survey poll. And the thing I like about SurveyMonkey is it's a link, right?
Mm.
So anybody, you can put it on Reddit and pin it. You can put it on Twitter and pin it. You can put it on Telegram and pin it. You can hit all the main channels across the major platforms that everybody's on.
Mm.
And I believe you can't vote twice because it's tied to your IP address. Now, if you've got a bunch of different devices, could you vote like 3 or 4 times? I mean, yeah. I mean, but that would take so much effort. I mean, I'm just trying to find something that could be least gamed. And the nice
Yeah.
thing about that application or that platform is that, you could also put in, do you want a logo change? Yes or no? And then underneath there, you can say, what country are you from?
Mm.
And then so we can actually grab data across all those platforms and not only get, a consensus as close as we can get to a true consensus for something like this that's non-development. I don't think that vote should happen on GitHub, frankly, because most people aren't even going to have the option to do that.
Mm.
And this hits everybody, and we can grab more data, and
Yeah.
say, we see, most of our community that voted is from the Netherlands. Most of the community that voted was from here. Oh, it was evenly distributed. And we get numbers of people, how many participated in that vote, and get a breakdown of some of that. So, I mean, I think we can get data from doing it in a different way until we can have it, like I said, built into a wallet or have a voting structure, which we just don't have right now, which I think is part of the problem, because it's, as much as I know you're like, I'm not official, like, it's not like, I'm just Josiah, you are more connected with the community directly than probably most people in this project. So you are actually really, really impactful.
I think that
And
also brings up one of the really good points as well, is the difference in terms of support. Like we've basically seen, especially if you look at the likes of basically anything that is or is not retweeted by DigiByte coin. I'm sure you've also noticed that certain things are intentionally omitted. And I think that's one of the things, though, as well, that we need to obviously have a really long, hard look at, because if people are looking back, they'll note that there was absolutely nothing retweeted about any of this development work that was going on, or about Barry, or about this potential logo. Nothing at all. But there has been about Jared, and so without kind of going down that rabbit hole, we're supposed to be embracing this whole permissionless and decentralized nature, but we're also being very much funneled towards this is the lead. And so we get a lot of people who, when that's the first thing that they see is someone saying that DigiByte will be killed by a logo change, of course, like, I completely understand why they would react both fearfully and with hostility. But so I think that on a lot of different counts, there are ways that we could be doing this better. I don't know how much of this we can... Well, I'd like to see us solve more in terms of having a better opportunity for this kind of discussion, not just around this, but around a bunch of other things as well. And that's the really difficult thing. I think actually Matthew brought up a really good point, was he said we could do some kind of DigiAsset version 3, and people who have been gone through like a KYC process can then vote on that kind of thing. But I think more than anything, there needs to be more communication and more encouragement of this kind of thing as well from different people. It's one of the things I actually put in the video, was I said, look, if someone has something more, like a competing one, if they've got something they think would genuinely look... Because you saw all of people putting up basically the phallic-shaped Ds and things that were clearly just a piss take. But if people do have a genuine suggestion, hell yeah, like, I'm all of the opinion that we should be taking that on board and sharing that around for people to see. If someone else can come up with something different that is to this kind of level of guidelines and things, absolutely, why don't we look at it? Like, I think that's brilliant.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that I think what we saw is that there's a breakdown, and when we have any leader in the community, you or Jared or Rudy or, whoever, to also like really, keep in mind when you're about to make something public, is there's a responsibility. You're not just another community member in a lot of ways. I mean, in some ways, yeah, you have the same vote as me. We're the same that way. But, when you're someone who's, can influence things, when you present information, how you present information is absolutely needs to be really well thought out.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of us that have definitely dropped the ball there, myself included, for sure, and could have done.
And that's where we really absolutely, have to be better, and offer like constructive, criticism. If you're like, this person did it wrong this way, it was really, I was trying to participate in the conversation without inflaming anything, but just trying to be like, okay, what can we do?
It was already well and truly inflamed by that point, really, wasn't it? Like,
so
it was terrible.
So I think there's, there's definitely lessons that have to be learned. I think you also raised a point, and I don't really want to get into the development discussion because, that's a different phone call. That's a call for developers. But talking about like the fundraising, I don't retweet that. Not that I don't want developers to get paid. I want them all to be paid. But I think that there's, again, responsibility, managing expectations that need to go along with that. Because if somebody, you just got an open wallet and they're like, give to this person, and someone's like, okay, well, I'm going to give, $50,000. If there's not a budget to say this is how much needs to be raised for this task, for this thing. And these are the expectations we should have for this process. Then an open-ended wallet actually can blow back. I mean, they saw it with, like with the marketing thing years ago. Like when things don't work, things don't happen like they thought was going to happen, it actually blows back really hard. And so I think, when we say we're going to get better, that's part of the thing that needs to get better. You know what I mean? So as far as like lack of support for those initiatives, I didn't retweet you, Josiah. I mean, and it's not because I'm like, I'm not a jerk. And we had this conversation before you posted that article.
Yeah.
As I said, I think they're going to have a problem here. And my worry for you in this situation, and I won't go too deep into it, is that Barry is anonymous. He can disappear tomorrow.
I mean, to be fair, so could anybody.
But you can't, babe.
Yeah.
You can't. You know what I mean? And that's why I said, and I'm not saying he's going to disappear tomorrow. I'm just saying that you are taking on more risk.
Yep.
In that scenario.
Yeah. Because
of your trust. And you said, I would be a hand on heart and apologize. And it's not even about that. It's just about that whole picture. So I think the entire scenario between B8, between the logo, between everything, I think we're just seeing like where does stuff break down? How can we be better? We've got to be better, because it wasn't great. And but I think the big thing is, reaching consensus or trying our best to incorporate the community when, it's a pretty big topic, a logo change, right? I mean, people who have invested so much time and effort and energy in creating marketing and content and things like that, those materials, a big change like that really, it undermines all their work. All of it's just like now irrelevant in a lot of ways, and that's how they felt.
Yeah.
Felt hurt.
I mean, that's the thing is, so just like when we did the first one, it would take time. Even if it's a minor change, if it's a major change, it will take time. Myself, and I think it was about 7 other people, just in case for the people who are watching here, there was a group of about 7 of us who contacted exchanges, mining pools, service providers, block explorers, all of that kind of thing, payment gateways, and basically we told them, I think there was actually five different times over the course of 2 years. Hey guys, we've got a new one. Hey guys, we've got a new wallet. Hey guys, we need you to update again. So it's kind of funny, I think, the people that are out there saying, yeah, it's gonna take so long and I don't want to do that. Well, frankly, it was there was 7 of us that did it to begin with. But
well, I think the thing that's
time.
different about I think the thing that's different though about this versus those updates, you're talking about technological updates, and so the thing with the logo, it's a broader scope, so it's just it can be a little like confusing between the two. So I just think in general, going forward, consensus needs to be like sought,
Yeah, and that's the hard thing is we're reaching consensus on like an unknown here. Like we're basically saying, do you want to try this new flavor of ice cream? And people go, no, actually I like chocolate as it is. But maybe it turns out they've never actually seen or tried vanilla and they'll like vanilla or cookies and cream, So
but you can at least get like that conversation started. You see what I'm saying? Like that conversation can be had in a more productive way where it's not like, FOMO, here is the logo that, we all really like. So do you see like, and again, you have a very, as much as you don't want to say it, you have a very, you have a very powerful role in this community because you've spent so much time in it, because you've contributed a lot. And so when you say something, it feels very official. And so as much as you're like, I'm just Josiah, I'm Chief Fun Officer, you have a very powerful voice. So I really think, and I love to hear everybody else's thoughts that are listening in, and I would like to see us do some sort of vote. I mean, everybody knows what's out there now, like yes or no, and let us make a decision as a collective community on because if we don't make some sort and the code V8 is different, that's a separate issue. I mean, I understand why you feel the two are intertwined, because the whole purpose of why the logo idea came up was because V8 was going to be coming out. But those are two separate things that need to be decided on. Like the V8 code, that gets decided on by the reviewers, the maintainers, the miners, that, all of that. Like you said, there's a list of 6 groups really involved in that. With the logo, it's really, it's up to all of us, right, collectively. So
I'm just reading here from Nick, and Nick's raised a very good point. He says exactly at what cost. The only people complaining are people who are brought in. What about the people who haven't? And that's an interesting perspective.
Sorry, can you say it again? I don't think I understood the question.
The only people who are complaining are the people who have already bought in to DigiByte. What about the people who haven't? And I think that's a really interesting point. That's exactly what this is about. Or at least that's why it was being proposed, was to bring that awareness in from other people who haven't yet heard. Actually, I tell you what, because this leads. Hang on, I forgot to bring it in before. Excuse me for just 1 second. I need to.
Okay.
My trusty.
Oh yeah.
This might be a bit ugly. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's okay.
Apologies, I still only have one working foot at the moment. So I used to mine DigiByte with a friend of mine who he'd also bought into DigiByte. He'd mined it with me. He got himself a mining rig, and he was online one day, and he bought me a lovely clock because he found it, and this was hanging up, and it has the DigiByte logo on it, according to him. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there, obviously. It's like, I can tell the difference. But I think Nick's actually raising I'll hang that back up later. I think Nick raises a really good question of this is... The idea with this was to create a discussion point for people who have not yet bought into DigiByte, who don't yet know about DigiByte as well. Clearly not succeeded there. And I'll be the first to admit that this has definitely not gone as expected, but because I think there was somebody else up as well. If you give me 1 second, where was it? And
yeah, I can't see the questions, so I'm gonna let you like bring the questions forward because I tried to pull it up on my phone.
Actually, it was Nick as well who said, but polling the current bag holders about the logo doesn't really help. The goal is to attract people who thought the project who was stale, or if you're bought into the tech, do you care about the logo? I mean, that's an interesting point in and of itself.
Well, I would say, one thing to not discount as far as that, and I thank you, Nick, for posting the questions. And I think it is interesting. Like, what is the goal? Is the goal to reach new people? Is the goal to, and like, how do we capture that this is different? I mean, I totally do understand that. But at the same time, we also, with the existing logo that we have, our Giphy page is 139 million views or something with that old logo, and so when we change it, all of that data, all of that is, and with a drastic change, you can't see one from the other. I mean, the thing about from version 1 to version 2, even to version 3, the little, I know people tweaked it a little bit, took away the little, people have little versions. They're all fairly in the same family class. And so it's recognizable, even if it's not exactly the same.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why people also...
Well, but again, it's like, and it was argued that the new logo looks more like Dash than the old look. Like, honestly, I'm not, it's really,
I guess
you can really get bogged down because everybody feels really strongly one way or the other.
Yeah, but the thing is the logo is still, even at the moment, it's still, like, even if it were changed, the memes are still the memes, right? Like, it's not like we're immediately discounted from them.
Oh, no, I know. But do you see what I'm saying? If you're looking for a brand recognition, and you have, like, again, just with that Giphy page, like, over 100 million views, and they're getting spread out. And if it's no longer the brand recognition, then and that's why Blaz was really, he was probably the most heated, and he got to be a little bit of a dick a couple times, frankly. But he was really, no offense, Blaz, but he came out, he was very passionate about it because that's what he has spent the last 2.5 years doing.
Yeah, understandably, and I think if anyone was going to be upset about it, it would definitely be, like, he's invested the most in it, for sure. I mean, there's a couple of us who have it. I think there's like 3 of us with it tattooed.
I did a temporary tattoo. You guys are crazy to do tattoos, I swear to God.
Which means we need to go back and get the original one as well and go for the whole set of 3.
But you see what I'm saying? So, I think Nick raises a good point, but there's also the counterpoint to that. So, and it's not to say, like, somebody's view isn't wrong. It's just because it's different. But we've got to get to a point where we can, across platforms, try to get a consensus that, is done in a way that is as fair as possible, least likelihood of being gamed, and can, hopefully give us some good information about how to move forward together.
Yeah. I think that was a really good point, though, in terms of, like, it's great that we've managed to get to be a $500 million blockchain, but I wonder if we could be more with something different, even if it's not this particularly proposed one.
Well, who's to say? Who's to say that the logo is going to make the value of the entire project go up? Again, that becomes like or kill it, whatever. Again, those are subjective points of view, right? That are going to be individual from individual perspectives. Where there's the perspective of, if we have something new, something fresh, that's going to pop us up. there's also the perspective of if we try to rebrand, we're going to get lost in a sea of unrecognizable images, and it will, and both perspectives are valid.
Yeah, there's merit to both.
There's merit to both, and so I feel like at this point we can the community has definitely discussed it. Like it's being discussed, people know about it. So what do we do now? How do we go forward now?
Yeah, that's not something that I myself like have an answer for yet either. It's something that I've kind of been thinking about. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where we could say, everybody knows about it. Let's take a vote, across platforms.
Mm.
And if somebody has a better option than something like a Survey Monkey vote, but obviously Twitter polls are terrible measure of statistics, and it's just
we'll include XRP at the bottom there as like as a fourth choice and watch it win.
Yeah. I mean, like, I hate Twitter polls. But everybody was so freaked out. They started putting up Twitter polls because they thought this was done, and they're like, "Wait a second, let's see what other people think." I mean, that's what we were seeing.
You covered that as well. You said that it's not specifically like just the way that I'd phrased it, but there were other people within the community who literally just got fired up and said no and screamed, and they also didn't handle it very well either.
I think that
we don't need that kind of radicalization, really.
I think, and I think this is something, I mean, and we just all have to become better at, especially the leadership people, the influencer people in this community.
Because you're absolutely right. Like, that was where the implication of this being a done deal came from. Because in the original Medium article, I think I said it like 6 different times, this will follow a process. You'll have a say, but...
Right. Well, yeah. and then the process, I think that was the other thing, is like, when is that process going to happen? When would this vote happen? Are we talking months away? Are we talking next week? Where is this going to happen? Is it going to happen on GitHub? Why is a logo vote happening on GitHub? And so all these other questions, and frankly, it took me a day or two to really understand what was going on. And I asked you I asked you a ton of questions. I'm like, why this? Why that? Because I wanted to understand.
I think between the two of us, we probably spent 4 hours on the phone at least, let alone the messages.
Well, because I was seeing comments from people, and I wanted to understand, like, how did this come about? How is it going to progress?
Yep.
Again, the open-endedness of things is part of the problem, because when you lay something out and you say this is an idea and this is going to be voted on, but it's not like it's going to be voted on in a week. It's going to be voted on in 4 months. It's going to be voted on when V8, like, it's going to be voted on GitHub.
Yep.
Why that come up, and it's important for us to solve going forward. So that's my next question, is how do we kind of put this topic, like, decide?
Yeah.
Or say, you know what, this is way more heated than we expected it to be, and there was some miscommunication, and we're gonna just table this for now.
Yeah. And
we will find a way to vote on that more effectively and give time for. But
I think one of the things that's been most overlooked is actually let me see if I can bring this up. The fact that we currently already actually have 3 different themes. This isn't something that gets talked about a lot. Let me see if I can just kind of bring this up here. And I don't see why we don't actually encourage more people to do themes, be it around the current logo, be it around the old logo even. Hell, I'd love to see that. Have a classic mode, right?
Sure.
I think that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. But if we get so many in there too, I know we always have a problem with the word official, but brand awareness is real important, especially right now with thousands of projects out there. And
Mm,
there has been established brand awareness that also brings value,
mm.
you know, and like how do you measure that value? Like
There's some
how
good
do you
points actually.
quantify it?
Sorry.
Like just how do you quantify it? You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
tough to do.
Um, yeah, exactly, because that was one of the things that Nick was talking about is it's great that we've got this known quantity of people who are aware of the brand, but we have this even bigger 99% who aren't aware of DigiByte or the brand or the logo or anything or blockchain in general.
So you're like, you know, so
Who's the demographic?
the idea there is to make a change before it becomes mass, you know, like in the masses.
More than that, but I think to make the change to bring awareness to our existence in general. In fact, that actually worked really quite well. Not a lot of people know a project called Antshears back in the day. Interesting tech behind them. Floundering, absolutely just like falling to pieces. They rebranded. They became Neo. Still,
Yeah, Anxious was kind of a release.
and
I
and
remember,
yeah, like they're still to this day doing significantly better than DigiByte. If you look at the likes of the Matic network, nobody really took terribly much notice of the name. They rebranded to Polygon. Huge marketing opportunity from that. Despite not a lot changing. I mean, they still had improvements under the hood, but it kind of coincided. And it was only after discussing that with people that kind of I realized, yeah, that's actually similar to what I had been originally proposing. I think just for some balance here as well, we've got comment from Mitchell at the community to decide. DigiByte is great, but marketing mistakes have held it back. Don't fix what isn't broken. Marco, besides the logo, I'm confused about what else in terms of marketing approach and strategy to go in tandem with the logo change or version 8. I don't think we actually have a lot around that, which raises a good point. Let me quickly skim back down. I've got the picture here as well. Hang on. So for people who aren't aware, this is what the different DigiByte wallet themes that we have at present look like. Usability is a bit rough, to say the least. The original one is the white one on the top left. It's very similar to the Bitcoin and the Litecoin pictures that I've got up on the screen as well. We have the DigiByte blue, and we've got the DigiByte black. So yeah, you can kind of see there's some very, very, very basic and rudimentary theming that has already gone on. And I've also got there in the center in the options. You can go into the display and you can choose the wallet theme. This is already built into our current wallet. Not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people have even seen our core wallet for that matter, which is kind of funny.
well, I mean, it's because you got to do that on the computer, right? You can't do the core wallet. So
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's one of the things I was talking with Demir about. He's like, do I have to rebuild the mobile wallets now and make a new like theme idea for those?
So anyway, I mean, we've been talking for almost an hour. I'm sure people are getting sick of hearing my voice, but so I guess the question now is, you know, like how do we go forward from here? You know, so that the conversation progresses, you know, either yay or nay, or a set day to vote and how to vote. I mean, what are your ideas about how to go forward from here in a way that is bringing people to, you know, bringing people to a consensus? Not that everybody has to agree,
Yeah.
but again, like it's kind of like a majority rules. I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, also acknowledging the permissionless nature of DigiByte, and this is where.
Sure. So, like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have the answer for how to like balance it up and weigh it up and keep the shit posts that we've seen from becoming a fully blown theme with phallic symbols in the core wallet.
It really was like some really bad stuff. But I, you know, because in the article you were like, it's going to go through the process and get voted on, right? That was how it was going to be decided.
Yeah.
But because it's not developed, it's not about the code, that can be voted on then by the broader community. So, you know, why can't we have a vote taken using something like a SurveyMonkey tool or a survey tool that's hard to game? Nothing's perfect, but hard to game, that can be shared across platform, because like you said, some people can be on this platform, some people can be on that platform, but that we can try and reach the broad spectrum of the community, and it's not just this constant back and forth, but be like, okay, stop shit posting, take a vote. Vote's going to be open for 48 hours, opens on this day, closes on this day. We've got the DigiByte awareness team that runs channels. We've got the main channel that has the large Twitter. We've got your channel. We've got the foundation's channel. We've got Reddit. We've got Telegram main channel. We can have the same message and say, this has been a discussion within the community. Take your vote. And, vote closes in 48 hours. And after that, it is what it is. So, I mean, what do you think of that concept?
Sorry, just looking at some of the questions and things there in the chat as well. Yeah, like, I guess the thing is, at the end of the day, we're still wanting to have something to be able to show for DigiByte version 8, as well as to eventually show people this is what the new theme looks like. So even if people are against the idea of a new logo, I still would love to see somebody whip up a proper look and feel and theme for it.
Yeah, it's not to say they couldn't. It's not to say they couldn't, but do you see what I'm saying? Because in the article it was like, okay, this will be voted on.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, can we vote on that? I mean, not to say people can't, still try and, do their thing. And I think was it Mitch or whoever brought up the point, like for version 8, what is the marketing idea behind that? How would we market that? I mean, I think that's also a really good question. But, but we also have months to work on that, because it's,
I think the thing that I'm grateful about, like in that kind of train of thought, is that this has at least brought that notion of participation to people's forefronts.
For sure. I will say, I like to try and find a silver lining. And, if anybody questioned whether or not we had a passionate community, I think it's pretty clear. They're pretty passionate about DigiByte. They're very strong-willed. They're very strong-voiced. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of energy, not well-directed. We
need to funnel that energy and that passion into something productive.
Exactly. It's exactly right. And that's why I'm like, I think decisions need to be made so that we can say, okay, as a consensus, this was the decision made. So now that decision is made, what can we do productively in that direction? Because I do think, marketing for the next upgrade is really important. And like Kat did, she did a DigiByte version 8 idea. There are ideas on how to distinguish, hey, we're moving forward, we're making changes. There's other ideas out there. And so that can also be discussed, and so it's just, do you understand the point I'm trying to make though?
Oh, yeah.
And if we have like bunch of different logos floating around, does it dilute the brand as well? So it's like it's permissionless and anybody can make anything.
Yeah.
But do you see what I'm saying? So it's like trying to calculate that value of having some like synergy within the different brands. So
yeah,
it's just, it's
that. Because I think the thing that not a lot of other people know is that the current logo nobody got a say in the matter. It was just, this is it. They got a say in the, like, we were talking about the DigiID and the DigiAssets logo and things like that. And it's interesting, there was no real pushback then, I think, because we didn't have anything. So when I was organizing those, there was just a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, and I think you raise a fair point. Like, when it was done before, it was easier. You didn't have a bunch of loudmouths that were so, the community was not as big as it is now. It just wasn't. 3 years ago, it was definitely not as big as it is now. I mean, Reddit alone has over 40,000 followers. The main account, 225,000 followers. I mean, it's definitely, I think if there was a change that was plopped on right now, even if it was proposed by Jared, it would be, if it was a big change, the pushback would happen. I think, it was a different, I came in like right after that happened, right after that logo change had happened. So it was really the only one I really knew. Nigel was still trying to get everybody to make a capitalized B and trying to, it was kind of a joke with us because he was so like, type A about it. And it took a lot of constant, like, hey, they're using the old logo. Hey, they got to fix that logo. And,
Yep. And so even the capitalization.
Yeah, exactly. And so that took a lot of, so many times. It became like a joke. I said it should be a drinking game, how fast Nigel will fix something if he sees it wrong. So I just don't think it would, you're right in a way that, I guess, because I wasn't there, that change happened without like community discussion, but the community was much smaller then. There was a core group of people that really was, it wasn't as broad and as broadcast as it is now. So, I just implore everybody who's listening, that please, can we not be nasty to each other? Please, can we stop the verbal abuse by everybody? Can we just take a breath and realize there are people who are trying to help, it gets exhausting, frankly. It really does. It gets hard to work. It gets hard to
Oh yeah, the number of
motivated.
people from other blockchains that have contacted me and said, I don't know why you waste your time there. No one gives a shit about what it is that you're saying. Come join us. We'll pay you. You can... And it crossed my mind. Don't get me wrong. Like, shutting up shop, closing up the YouTube channel and things, it crossed my mind. Could just disappear tomorrow and go work on something else. It'd be lovely. And get paid for it. It sounds great.
Yeah, and it's really hard. It's really hard when the language is verbally abusive. The world is already a hard place. A lot of the reason many of us are here because we see broader problems, in monetary systems in our country. We're already trying, we're already trying to solve, broader problems, and to have to like deal with infighting within the community and negativity and
we definitely need more compassion. We need less of the radicalization. We need less of that confrontation. We need more participation. We need more. That's I think the thing that really stuck with me is throughout the whole time I've basically said we need more. We need more people joining in. We need more people's voices. We need more people getting on board and helping out. We need more ideas, and we need to encourage those ideas.
No, I think you're right, and we also have to be a welcoming community, but how we present ideas, especially if you're a leader, how you present those ideas, how they are communicated, is really important part of that process. And I think some major lessons have been learned you know, on how to go forward, because what was done 3 years ago is not how it's going to work now, you know. And so again, I think it comes down to, you know, we really have to find a path forward from here, you know, and and to get a consensus vote on how to move forward. So it's just not just this constant washing machine on this topic of everybody going round and round with no answer, with no direction. And when a consensus can be made, then you know, I saw somebody say, you know, if I can put up a marketing plan, you know, if some people want to help me, and this is outside the awareness team, this is just somebody else. We have new people. I see a lot of new faces, and a lot of them are business owners. This is a different class of people.
It is that 99% that are the
exactly,
new come,
and so they're coming in. They're coming in from a lot of them from the stock market, because DigiByte's bleeding into, you know, the stock market conversations, thanks to, I think, Longmeadow, like on stock puts and puts us out there. But, you know, and a lot of the humble people are coming in, and they're coming with a different experience set, you know what I mean? And so some of that group were like, you know, hey, I owned a business, I understand marketing, let's get together, let's, you know, put a plan together. But we need to have this part kind of figured out, right, before a plan can come from it. So again, I'm just coming back to, how can we move forward? How can we expedite it and get some decisions made? Because this doesn't depend on the code of V8. This is separate. Does that make sense? Oh, is somebody talking?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking back in the chat there.
Yeah, look and see. I'm sorry, I'm just
rambling. No, it's fine.
So that's the point. That's my point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, so and I think to follow on from that, the question then becomes, where to from here? Like, where do we go with this? Where do we take that energy and run with it? And rather than an immediate like, let's all jump on what was it, SurveyMonkey, what I would rather we saw is an opportunity for more people to actually have some input and provide different ideas before we go and, like, cut ourselves off, if you know what I mean.
Well, okay, that's totally fine. And you know, if we can set some sort of, you know, timeline to be like, okay, it was
give it a week, give it 2 weeks or whatever for you to come up with some stuff.
Give it some time to have this discussion, you know, because really, I think honestly, the lack of community involvement in the discussion before it was put out polarized everybody, you know. And it's like, how can we go forward without polarizing? So if you're like, hey, let's get some community feedback for a few days or a week, and then we're going to put everything up to, you know, we're going to put it up to a poll, and give a date. You know, poll opens this time, closes this time. The open-endedness is a real problem, because the conversation is going to go on until we have some sort of answer. And that's why a lot of people started putting up their own polls, because they're like, they want to get an answer. So I think you're right. I think we need to have, you know, quality community feedback where people feel respected to share their opinion. But at the same time, I really think there needs to be, you know, definitive, you know, time and date set.
Maybe from here, maybe we need to go out there then, and this is potentially something that you might be able to, at least I'm hoping you could help me with, or even the viewers as well, is getting this kind of thing, like if we collate that and collate some ideas, similar to what we did with the mobile wallets, and basically we give people, I think it was like 2 weeks to come up with some ideas, we give them 2 weeks to then effectively vote on it. We could send out like a SurveyMonkey, whatever, we could put the link on Twitter. Do you think that we would get buy-in from those that run that kind of thing, even though some of them have been...
I absolutely, you know why? Because it's totally neutral. You're not asking for money. There's no risk of blowback in that way. You're asking for the community to participate in a vote. I think that every main account that has a large following I think they would participate in that because it helps bring really peace back to the community a little bit. And we need to find a way to get there in a respectful way, in a productive way.
Mm. Okay.
So yeah, I absolutely think it could be shared, across all major platforms.
Maybe we should quickly ask this just for the people who are currently here live at the moment. Would you be interested in doing something like that or participating in that? Do you think that that's a good idea? If we were to give, like, say, 2 weeks for people to submit additional ideas, like full branding, like guidelines and theming and things like that, even if someone wants to do that with the existing one and extend it further to be a full branding guidelines. Sorry, I'm looking down here.
Well, but again, too, I think before we get to that, should we ask what percentage of the community thinks that we need a logo change?
Well, I think the problem with asking that is people are inherently fearful and will never change. You'll always stick with what you know and what you've got. Always.
Then...
Unless you're being given something to specifically, like, look at. It's what's the name of it?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying they're going to say no already because they maybe don't like the current one.
Yeah, basically, before people have even had an opportunity
to
propose something that's potentially even better.
Like the one that Spiral did, and you're like, well, they don't like that one.
So they'll just go no.
They'll just go no. Okay. I mean, I think that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point, and to open it up, and no disrespect to Spiral. Again, I feel bad for that.
I think one of the things that we can do, especially, is include that in it. And basically, if we're doing a Survey Monkey, we can have, like, this one. Maybe somebody will come out with brand guidelines for the existing one, or maybe somebody will just say, no, just keep it 100% as it is. Like, don't modify it, don't improve it, don't do anything. And we can have those options then.
Yeah, I think this is good. I think this is a good food for thought. I think let's, let this video get out there and let people kind of discuss. And maybe what we can do is try to, offer up some solutions.
I'm seeing a shit ton of yeses in the chat comments.
Yes of what?
I'm
sorry.
Yes to doing it that way, giving it like 2 weeks for people to submit additional ideas and then vote yes or no or change or.
So we have a definitive time that we as a community cast our vote. I think that will help people psychologically. And as we go forward, I think we've seen what, good communication style and bad communication style can do. So, like, let's be better.
Yep.
Please not be triggery and mean.
Yeah. Marco raises a good point. We're not an organization. Still, marketing is so much more than a logo change. I want to hear more on that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that hopefully we'll be able to funnel this positive energy in towards rather than the division that we were seeing. Disturbed now says, guys, all brand logos change without community votes. The technology is most important, and that's kind of true in some ways, but it also can be used as a marketing opportunity. Crypto Ball likes the current one the most.
I agree the technology is most important, and we were having, and that was, I think the timing really too is another reason why it was so polarized, because we were having really heated discussions about the technology, about things, going forward, how do they go forward, and we were, I think, trying to everybody get their mind around that. And then the timing of coming in, a week after that discussion where people were still trying to figure out their brain, what's going on. They're just starting to follow the chats and follow the developer conversations and starting to get acclimated in that scope and getting their mind around it. And then this came in. So it was just like, it took all the energy that people were focusing on looking at the development and looking at that process and kind of shifted all that energy to the logo. And I think whoever made that comment was absolutely right. Our focus really should be on the technology and get that taken care of. Get that, support that development process.
Yeah, which obviously this is why I was doing the fundraiser in the first place, was to get that technology over there.
I I get it. I mean, I truly do get that, Josiah. And again, my only problem with the fundraiser was the open-endedness.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
You know, like, again, it's like whenever we're going to the community for funds for something, you know, clear expectations need to be set.
Yep.
You know, especially when it's like for a specific initiative, you know, versus like, hey, you know, like a marketing fund or a general dev fund or something like that, that the DigiByte awareness team has, but you know, they'll just kind of like vote as things are needed from them, you know. But when it's a specific initiative and it's a specific developer, it's a specific designer, it's a specific thing, the framework of that is so super important. But I also think, you know, funds need to be raised. It's true. You know, but how do we raise them in the best way for everybody? You know, for the people giving, for the people receiving, for the people facilitating that. You know, I mean, you were the facilitator for Barry, so you hold a responsibility. Kind of hold all the responsibility in a lot of ways. And so again, when we're talking about raising funds, just that would, but anybody can raise funds. Like you know, Blast can put out a wallet and be like, hey, let's raise funds for this, and people can choose to support it and not support it. You know.
Yep.
And that's individual choice. But
and I think one of the things that I want to see more of is that participation. And I want to see other people stepping up, not just in terms of the donations, but in terms of running these kind of fundraisers. I want to see more people doing it. I want to see more logos, more options. I want to see more wallets coming out. I want to see more people getting behind development and proposing ideas and that kind of thing.
No, I think more participation is absolutely key, you know, and having, you know, fair avenues for that, you know, we need to be better at. And so we have to choose whether we use these lemons to make some lemonade, frankly, and be honest with ourselves, and introspective of what could we have done better individually? What could we have done better as a group? Because as long as, I mean, I get it that it's decentralized, but it doesn't have to be fractionalized.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be disorganized.
It doesn't have to be disorganized. It doesn't have to be polarized. You know, it could be people working together for a common goal, and in a way that's just, you know, healthier.
So how about after this, the two of us, I mean, maybe not today because it's getting kind of late there for you now, I'm aware. But why don't we do that? We'll work together. We'll try and come up with something in the next maybe day or two. We'll give people... Does 2 weeks seem fair? Like, I mean, that seemed to be what the people in the chat were indicating. What do you reckon in the chat? Like, is 2 weeks a good enough time, people? Or do we need longer? Do we need... I mean, that's the hard thing, is if we do too much less time, then you can't do a full review like that.
I mean, yeah, you want to be fair, because if somebody wants to participate, you want to give them a window of time, and then you know,
maybe people can only do it on their weekends, and if we go, you've got 36 hours and go.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I mean, as long as there's a time frame put out and just say the decision hasn't been made, we're gonna take a step back, reorganize how this conversation is framed, and who can, now that everybody's very involved in it, take a step back, open the floor up to other contributors if they choose to, and we set a date, 2 weeks from whenever that is announced, and we will find a polling option that we can use cross-platform.
Yeah.
And have the poll open from
with SurveyMonkey being independent. It sounds like a winner, and I know Valerie's still in here for the whole video this whole time, so you deserve a medal, Valerie.
Well, I just, we were trying to find something that would work regardless of which platform you live on,
Yep.
And
yep.
And that just seemed like we've used it before, and maybe it'll turn out to be a real tool that that we can use on a regular basis,
Mm.
you know, for different things.
Some food for thought there. Well, if I can count on you to help me, because let's be honest, I mean, I know you'll always say yes, but and for that I am so very grateful.
Well, I want to help the communication be better, and ideas to be better communicated. Not that I'm like, you know, perfect at it, but I try to listen and watch what people are saying, and take all of those perspectives, even if I don't agree with them, take them into account, and try to see how can we do this together, you know, with respecting everybody's points of view, you know, not just automatically discounting points of view. And how do we avoid these sorts of things in the future, so that we are building instead of tearing down? Because, you know, we've got to build together. We are up against projects that are well funded, that are, you know, that have Elon Musk tweeting about them, that have, you know,
and he got a lot of money.
Yeah, you know what I mean. We're up against some really big players here, and if we don't work together synergetically, you know, that makes that climb. It's like pushing a cart up a hill and someone coming and taking the wheels off the cart. And we've got to stop taking our wheels off our own cart.
Yep.
And that's, you know, these are self-inflicted wounds that are happening right now.
Yeah, 100%. All right, then.
You know,
maybe we should wrap it up there. Thank you so much, everybody who has joined in today. There's been a really decent amount of you. Thank you as well, because I know that we've had some people from, what's the word I'm looking for? From Humble. Thank you. We've been looking. We've had some people from Humble here the whole time as well. I know that you're obviously a big fan of theirs. Shirzad said we can't be our own enemy, and I think that's probably the best way to wrap this up. Thank you everybody who has stayed here the whole time. Thank you for the input. Thank you for helping us out with, we'll do that. We'll do 2 weeks. We'll give us a couple days to kind of come up with something. We'll get more people involved, and I think this is what we want to see more of, is more involvement, more people coming along, more people having their say, more people giving us ideas, more participation, and just more people. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
No, just thanks for the time, and I hope, you know, we're gonna go forward in a better way.
Sounds lovely. Hopefully. Have a good one. Okay. Good night, everybody. Take care then, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers. And